All right, everybody. This is really cool. It looks like the sun coming in my house makes me look like I'm uh, godly or something. But, anyways, I have my first submission for doing a financial plan for someone, and I wanted to get it, uh, take care of it, so people could get an idea in terms of what I do and how I can help, and how I can help people get back on track. As always, because I do this for a living. Anything that I tell you is not advice. You shouldn't follow my advice. It's just I'm taking a situation, looking at it hypothetically, and I'm saying, maybe this would be a good idea to look at, or a good way to put yourself in a better position. Also, any opinion that I give is my own. It has nothing to do with CIBC Wood Gundy. So let's take a look at Jack and Jill, and I will see if I can help them out. Okay, so this is how the Planswell system worked. Like I've said before in other videos, this is a free system. So I pay for this system for my clients to use, and it goes through an easy questionnaire that gives me the details that I would need to start talking to someone about a financial plan. Financial plans are dynamic. They change all the time. All we're trying to do is look at a current situation and figure out how can we tweak things, or what are some decisions we have to make so that you are going in the right direction instead of the wrong direction. So this is Jack and Jill and Jack. Obviously, that's not their names. I've changed it because I want to make sure that there's no everything's confidential. But here's how it works. So Jill is a female who's age 30. Jack is a male who's 27. Jill makes 24,000. Jack makes 54. There is zero in an RESP, zero monthly savings. Risk tolerance is low. Nervous. The debt. So there's a car loan for $600 a month, a credit card 14,562 for 239, line of credit, and other. Rent is $1,522, which is actually quite reasonable based off of where Jack and Jill live. And there is a child who is 3 years old. Okay. We can go to view and edit the plan. What the system does is it looks at the debt that you have. It tries to calculate when things will be paid off. And then it says that money that you save from paying off the debt will go towards savings and investment. Now, the problem is that depending on the type of debt, who says it's never going to get paid off? One of the big things that pops out right away when I look at the situation is you have the car loan. Fine. I don't know how much longer the car loan is going for, but hopefully it's a low interest rate. Personally, whenever we buy a vehicle, we get a year-old model, and historically they give those away for like 0% financing. So that's what we have. Who knows if that's where things are going to go with the way interest rates are, but I mean, that's the only time I've actually done financing is when it was 0%. But here's the big thing. So credit card balance of 14,562. If we go to this credit card payoff calculator, credit cards usually have an interest rate of about 20%. The payment at $239 on that balance, you go calculate, and it says at the terms you entered, your balance will never be paid off, right? So right away, this is a problem because you're giving 20%. So to put it into better terms, let's just do your balance 14,562 times 20% equals $2,912 per year. That's a huge amount of money to be paying. So the first thing we need to do is figure out what to do about the debt situation. There's a bunch of different ways to look at debt, but the first thing we want to do is look at what debt does this couple have that's the lowest interest rate. So there's a line of credit. Usually, just my little guy's got a little bit of a cold, so he's coughing in the back, but usually lines of credit have a lower interest rate. So if this line of credit, for example, was $20,000 total limit, I would immediately take $3,700 off this and put it on the credit card balance, which would shift that amount of the balance to a lower interest rate, giving you a better chance to actually pay it off. Right now you have $239 and $600. So the other thing you'd want to look at is what's the minimum that you have to pay the most. So pay the minimum on everything you have, and then what's left goes on to the highest interest debt. So, for example, if the minimum on the line of credit is $100 a month, or say, actually, I think it'd be 3%. So if we go to calculator, 16,300 times 3% equals 49. So if it's 49, so that'd be a step that we take immediately, is just move as much as possible to the lowest interest rate um, vehicle that you have, right? So if there's room, maybe this is 30,000. If this is 30,000, then max out the line of credit, paid on the credit card, so it's 20%. So you're switching that 20% interest debt to something cheaper. Consolidation loan is obviously something that's always really useful because we're dealing with the limited cash flow here. Most likely, it would be very hard to get approved. Okay, so by the time you get to this point, the problem with consolidation loans is that usually you won't qualify for it. It's kind of frustrating, but unless you have a really high credit score. So that's the first thing, looking at the debt. Now, the second thing is that obviously we need to get this debt paid off, because you won't move forward in terms of building your net worth in your life until this debt's gone. So here it says, there's $1,500 that's being used to pay down current debts. When all the debt is paid off, you can start contributing to your retirement fund. The sooner we can do that, the better. So I would say to the client, hey, I mentioned Mint. So the mint.com program, go into Mint, start using that and tracking where your money goes. See if you can make some cuts, because an extra couple $100 will make a huge difference in terms of paying down this debt and how quickly you can get to the positive side of things. Okay, step one is what to do with the debt, and then how do we get some savings going? One of the big things is that they have a 3-year-old child. They need to have an RESP. An RESP is a program in Canada where if you put in $2,500 a year, you'll get $500 for free from the government. Plus, if your income's under a certain level, you can get extra grants. Also in BC, we have the BC Education Savings Grant, which is $1,200 when a child's 6. I got to check, but it's like 6, 7, or 8, I think, that you get it. You don't get to like, if you miss the year, you don't get that $500. So there's really a urgency to start putting away around 200 and I just do $200 a month for each child, because you're getting $500 for free, which is also invested. Now, a big thing with RESPs is people go, well, what if my kid doesn't go to school? Just to be clear, how an RESP works is that as long as your child is in school, they can take the money out. No one checks where the money goes. No one checks if it goes to books or tuition. So if you read between the lines there, it can just be taken out whenever your child goes to school, and they can use it while they're going to school. This is a huge advantage. Every year that you miss having an RESP maxed out is a year where you miss that $500. Okay. So if there's a way to get it open, even if you don't have enough to put in the max, if you can start doing, $50 a month or just something to get that going and get the additional grants, it's a huge benefit to your child in the long run. So this is the steps we did. So we looked at this, we were figuring out, okay, we're going to move the debt, whatever debt there is, to the lowest interest rate vehicle. The clients have to go through Mint to see if they can save any money on their monthly budget. The next step, if none of that works out, is you have to sit down and have a really realistic conversation and say, how long will it take for us to pay down this debt? How many years are we going to be sitting here with debt hanging over our heads without being able to get ahead or start saving money? If we go to this loan calculator here, actually, we'll use a credit card payoff. So let's say the whole amount was just in one pile, right? So if we had the car, 34,000 plus the credit card balance plus the line of credit plus the other. So there's 67,862. 67,862, I think, was my amount there. 862. And let's assume the line of credit's at a lower interest rate than the credit card. And the payment, if we go back to Planswell here and add up all the payments together, so it's 600 plus 239 plus 600 plus 80. So that's 1,519. 9. Calculate. So it's going to take 5 years to pay that off. So it's going to be 5 years. You're going to pay about $22,506 in interest to get the vehicle paid off, to get the credit cards paid off, to get the line of credit paid off. If you don't have expectations about getting a big raise or changing your career to a point where you can pay this down faster, you're going to need to look at one of 3 options. Like I said before, so the first thing would be a consolidation loan. That, I mean, we look at the numbers here, even if it was 8%, that's going to take 5 years to pay down. Or let's just see, calculate credit card. Yeah, 5 years to pay that off. So I mean, that's not the best situation, but you will have your debt paid off. Okay. The next thing that you can look at is something called a consumer proposal. All right. Now, what you want to really be realistic about is that if it's going to take you 5 years to pay off this debt, can you do something where the debt that you have to pay off is less and take a hit on your credit? Because either way, you're not buying a house in the next 5 years. Okay, so how a consumer proposal works is you talk to one of these debt specialists, they're all the same. They just do a consumer proposal. They go to the people that you owe money and say, hey, listen, my client can't pay their money. Would you accept half instead? Or would you accept a third? Okay, the reason they do this is that if you don't pay, then it goes to a collection agency, and a collection agency will buy the amount owing for dollar. Like, let's say you owe $10,000, a collection agency might buy that debt for $2,000 and hope they can still get you to pay $10,000, meaning they make $8,000. The company they buy the debt off, they write it off. So the bank's just like, let's say you owe the money to the bank. The bank's just like, okay, it's a write-off. We lost this money. We'll sell this debt that's not going to get paid back to us for $2,000. Hey, we got $2,000, and then the collection agency comes after you for the rest, right? So there's that. That's why there's this situation that they have this thing where it's consumer proposal, and you're basically saying, hey, before we get to that point where you're writing this debt off and you're sending it to a collection agency, why don't we just make a deal now? So at least you get the amount that you get more than you would if you sold a collection agency, but I don't have to pay as much. So how this works is you go through this process. Most consumer proposals provide for a monthly payment over a period of 5 years. Your credit's going to be screwed up. There's no way to get around your credit being screwed up if you aren't paying your debt back in full. But because there's a time limit, you have to look at the balance between, if I pay this off in full, let's say, what was it, $64,000, $68,000, I will be at zero in 5 years. I'll be at a point where I can start saving money, where I can start moving ahead in 5 years. Well, if you do a consumer proposal, you'll pay half as much. So this is fun. My little guy keeps yelling at me, so I keep losing my train of thought. But consumer proposal, your credit's messed up for 5 years at least. You have to pay, let's just say for sake of argument, half of what you owe. The payments are less, and then you have to rebuild your credit. It's not as bad as bankruptcy. It shows up differently on your credit score, because bankruptcy is the worst. Bankruptcy is where you basically say, I can't pay any amount back, and that looks the worst on your credit score. Whether you're doing consumer proposal or you're going bankrupt, the thing is that you're still going to look bad when you try and get your credit going again. But the difference here is, let's go back to the plan. And right now, based off of this, it's saying, okay, in 5 years when their debt's paid down, you'll start allocating 1,519 to your savings, right? What if we take what you owe? So there's 67,862, 67,862 divided by 2 equals 33931. Let's go to this calculator. We go 33931. It's a 5-year loan that's getting paid back at. It's probably going to be like 10%, and they probably put a fee on top of it, but it's still half the debt, right? So calculate that. Monthly payment is $720.93. So we'll go back to Planswell here, and we're going to say, okay, you owe zero on your car loan, zero here. So take away the car loan, the monthly payment on the car loan. This is what we want to look at, okay? So this is the amount that will be left over in investment accounts in 2091. Actually, I'm going to just go back and show one more thing. So we go to asset chart view. Oh, excuse me. This is when the debts are paid off, so 2026. And then you can start seeing how the tax receivings account's going up there. And this is the max. So remember this number. This is kind of a new system to me as well, but we're just trying to see kind of where it peaks out here. So we got 425 plus 381. So let's say $800,000. Okay. So pay off the debts. This is assuming that there's no house involved. This is 2059. So this is after you're supposed to retire. So at age 67. So this is a long ways down the road. This is something you could do, right? You could just stick to paying your debt down and then hope that things get better, hope that, you make more money at your job, whatever, right? I'm just trying to say, like, don't take my advice. I'm just trying to show you an alternative that might be better based on your situation. So let's say 800,000. If we go here and we're going to take away the car loan, we're going to take away that monthly payment, no credit card balance. It's important to know that you will not have a credit card in this scenario. Like, once you're done with your consumer proposal, you'll have to get a secured credit card. You'll use a secured credit card is where you put up cash against the limit so you can build your credit. You'll just have to do some work, right? But it's what's the long-term benefit, right? So let's take away all the debt and just put in one other. So the other balance is 33,931, and that monthly payment was $720, right? $720. Okay. So preview that. Alrighty. So now we go here to the peak. So the debts are paid off. Now, the difference here is that it's just saying once you pay off that 720, you're only investing the 720. So what we have to add in is actually your savings. So it was 1519, what you were paying before, right? 1,519 a month. So let's go 1519 minus 720. So now we have 799. So we're going to go back up here to investing, and we're going to do TFSA for both of you guys. A tax receivings account is where you invest money if you don't make a lot. So RSPs are for people that make a huge amount of money because their tax bracket is higher. I'll do another video on how tax brackets work, but essentially, if you make money while you're a lot of money while you're working, and you're not going to make a lot of money when you're retired, you put money into RSPs. If you're not making a lot of money and you're in a low tax bracket, there's no point in putting money into RSP, because later on in life, like, you put in $10, they give you $2 back in terms of your taxes today, but then that $10 grows to 30, and then they tax you on that when you're retired. So yeah, you got $2 back today, but you're paying $6 in the future. If your tax rate's really high and you put $10 in and you get $5 back, it makes more sense, because long term, if you retire with a lower income tax bracket, you'll pay less tax. So don't do RSPs just for the sake of doing RSPs. You have to make sure you talk to someone about whether it makes sense at all. And then the RESP right away, we're going to start with, let's say 500. Okay. So put that in, and the monthly savings that we have was $7.99, right? That's the savings from doing a consumer proposal. Again, I'm not giving you advice, it's just something to think about. And if we press preview, okay, so let's get back to this peak. So now at the peak, we have, oh, sorry, here's the RSP growing. So if we look, you start your savings right away. So there's not this period where there's just the debt being paid off. The RESP starts growing, right? So we get, by the time they get to school, it's 25,000, right? Um, if we look at, let's just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, right? So in 5 years, there's 25 grand sitting in a tax-free savings account, 4,500 sitting in an RESP. Non-registered is just money that's not in a TFSA. The system, I don't know exactly how it's doing all this behind the scenes, because this isn't the main system I use when I do a financial plan. This is just how I gather data. But we're looking at, so 25 grand plus another 4, plus another 2. So there's about, 30,000 in savings, plus the RSP has 4,500 bucks in it. Okay. So in 5 years, you've still paid off all your debt. Now you're sitting on about $30,000 in savings. You've got an RESP started for your child. If we keep going along the route here, you can see things get bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Then we get to 67, and we have 3, 4, I think it's around like 900, right? It started putting money into RSPs, obviously, because the income of one of you has gotten, it goes up with inflation, right? So it's the saying behind the scenes, well, we should put money into RSPs because now it makes sense based off one of your earnings, right? So it's just, the main thing that you're looking at is, does it make sense to wait to start building your net worth and keep your credit pristine? Or does it make sense, because it's going to take 5 years anyways to pay off what you owe now, to do something where you have more money in your jeans, and actually building up savings so that you can buy a house at some point? Like, look, if we go to like 40, well, that's a pretty good down payment. You got 66 grand in one TFSA, another 55 in the other. It's over $100,000, right? It's like $111,000 that you have to put towards a down payment on a house, or maybe even sooner. Like, we go to 35, right? Maybe you're getting into a condo or something. Maybe the housing market really crashes. I don't know. But this is something that you really got to look at. And a lot of like the conversations I have with people are not the happiest, but if you feel like you're doing what you're doing and you're not getting anywhere, then it's really important to figure out what changes you can make. And sometimes they have to be pretty drastic, right? So that would be the main steps you'd have to start off on right away. Is, so just to put it all into summary, is 1, you're going to move any debt that you have at a higher interest rate to a lower rate interest rate. Okay. Once you do that, you're going to pay the minimum on everything except for your highest interest rate debt, which is your credit card, if your plan is to pay down that debt. Okay. The second thing you're going to do is you're going to sign up for that Mint program. You're going to start tracking every dollar of spending you do, and you're going to figure out how to cut things out of your budget to pay down your debt faster. All right. This whole scenario with a consumer proposal doesn't work if you pay off your debt in 2 years, right? Because if you can figure your situation out now where you can pay down that debt within the next couple of years, then you should keep your pristine credit rating, because you're just going to have to struggle for 2 years before you can start building up your net worth. Okay. Um, the last, and then the last thing, open an RESP for sure. You need to get an RESP open. The other thing we want to tweak in here as well is when we go down to your investment assumptions. Okay. So a lot of times I talk to people and they're like, well, we're not very comfortable with investing and having the volatility in the account. Right now, we're going through one of the worst stock market crashes since 2008. You are young. This is the only time that you're going to have in your life to really get aggressive in terms of your investing. Now, I'm not talking about investing in crypto. I'm talking about investing in actual investments where you have a piece of a business that has employees that are working and making a profit. Okay. When we look at the growth rates here, I would say your maximum growth, I would want to see you making 7% on average, right? Like, I don't want to see you making 5.75% when you're so young. Let's go here. I don't know why this won't let me. Can I change it? There we go. 7%. Okay. You guys should be exactly the same. Now, again, I don't take my advice. I'm just saying what I would do hypothetically if this was me. This is your pension amount. So everyone gets a certain amount of pensions when they get to retirement. It's based off of how much money you put in. Okay. So if you're making more than 50 grand, you'll get the most. If you're making less, then it's prorated. And what they do is they calculate up they take all your years of working. Like, this is a simplistic way of looking at it. They take all years of working and they throw out a certain amount of years because you were young or because you had kids. Like, it's different for men and women, how many years they throw out. And then they take the average amount you've contributed. So if you've only ever made $30,000 all your life, then you're not going to get the maximum CPP because CPP is based off of how much money you make up to a limit. Okay. So that's why you see these different amounts here. So if we pull this all together, what we've done is reduce the amount of debt that you pay using a consumer. So this is, again, hypothetical. Don't follow my advice if you don't want to. I'm just giving you my opinion, but you do a consumer proposal, cut your debt in half, cut your payments to $720 a month. I don't know exactly what those would be because you actually have to deal with someone who goes to the people you owe money to and says, hey, what's the best deal we can do? But let's say hypothetically that happens. That gives you an extra $7.99 a month for savings. That goes into TFSAs, RSPs, RESPs based off of the need at the time. We changed the growth rate to 7% during your working years, and it goes down to 5.75% in retirement. This all equals a peak of your net worth in 2059 of 1.462 million. Obviously, you'd probably buy a house in between these points, but there's going to be a whole bunch of variables where your income would get higher. I would suggest that no matter what you do going forward, is you always stick to the $1,500 a month goes into savings that we figured out here, because you should just in a perfect world you would just make a little bit more every year, which would give you excess capacity to pay a mortgage at some point. So that would give you, a peak of 1.462. The RESP would be up to 26,000 when your child was 18. You can keep going with the RESP. I think it's just the default is it's 18 there. If we go back to the summary view, in the future when you retire, you'd have $6,542 a month after taxes. That's a good amount of money. Right now you have $30,000 to spend after debts. So that's a pretty big difference, 260% of what you survive on now. Your estate will be about $1 million. You should look at getting insurance, because if you have the extra money in the future, insurance is cheap when you're young. You should have insurance where if one of you were to pass away, you have enough, you have the income of that person for the rest of the, you have rest of the time you have a dependent. So um, easy math would be your child's 3, they'll stay with you till they're 17, sorry, for another 17 years. What does your spouse make? Say it's 50 grand times 17. That's the insurance amount of insurance you need, so that if something were to happen to your spouse over that time frame, um, you would still be able to survive, right? There's nothing worse than getting a situation where you have to deal with your spouse passing away, but also you don't have enough money. You have that whole other money stream gone. So that's something to think about as well, but not as important as getting rid of debt. The main thing is the debt needs to go as soon as possible. Um, like, this is a pretty good plan, right? Like, if we, if in a perfect world, if we implemented and everything went exactly like I said, you went from being in a situation that seems very hard to get out from under to a situation where you have a pretty nice retirement, you have a good cushion, right? Like, um, in 2025, you got 20, you got money in case something goes wrong, or if you want to buy a house, or, um, you know, you, this is good. Like, the sooner that you can get started on these types of plans, the better. I know that there's a lot of things that are going to happen during your life which can throw this off course, but this would be a good start. The other thing to look at, I did another video about this. Where is it that you're going to keep, you're going to grow your net worth, right? Just the last thing that I'm going to touch on, and I went over this in a different video. Um, Look at these numbers, right? So right now your rent is about $1,500 a month. You have $2,500 for living expenses, and you have actually $1,500 in savings. Okay, once that consumer proposal is paid off. Some of these numbers are pretty drastic differences from where you're at now. So if you wanted to eventually have a house in the South Okanagan, let's say, um, you're going to have to come up with 44.56 per month, um, and then take away the amount that you have saved. One of the things I didn't even touch on before is that a couple making 100 grand wouldn't even qualify for a mortgage payment of 4,456, because it can only be 32% of what you make per month. Um, so, yeah, it wouldn't even be achievable to get a mortgage here. So that's the other thing, is that if you're going to continue to build your net worth, I mean, while you're renting, you're fine. You can be building your money that you have in your tax-free savings accounts and that, but really you'd want to be in a position where you have this going, right? So you have, whether it's wherever, okay, you have your mortgage, you have the house, plus you have that $1,500 of savings every month. So it's going to take a while to get there, but as you make, like, as you make more money, um, you'll eventually get to a point where maybe this is doable, right? That's, you gotta have $10,000, um, yeah, a little over 10,000 a month gross coming in to qualify for this, right? Um, Gosh, for this one, you need, I think it'd be like, what, 16, let me just see here, 16,000 times 0.32, 14,000. You need around, to be grossing between the two of you, about $14,000 a month to get here, to qualify here, right? So something to think about. Hopefully this was helpful. Again, none of the things, there's a lot of variables that aren't apparent in this financial plan, right? If you're dealing with a financial planner, you'd have an in-depth discussion where you figure out, what is the budget, like what's in the budget? Is there things that you can't change? Is there extenuating circumstances? Is there a potential for very high increases in wages that I'm not seeing here. But the main thing looking at the situation is that the debt needs to go. The faster it can go, the better. You need to start putting some savings aside, and there is a potential really good outcome, right? Even without making any more money, right? If some things were changed and some you know some tough decisions, but some reallocation of the money going towards debt to going towards building your assets would be it's entirely doable. So it's better better to be in a situation where you're suffering a little bit now with with knowing that there's a payoff at the end versus how debt can just get on you and it's like this is my life now forever unless we win the lottery or something changes, right? So it just gives you more control in terms of your life. So I really hope that helps. This is what I do every day. Not all I do. I also do. So the next where I come into things as well is after you do the financial plan and you do have your assets that you build up. How do you invest them in a way that you're going to continue to have growth? Because financial freedom is where you have enough money sitting in these investments that they just grow. When you're asleep, they're growing. When you're the market's not open all day, but you just don't have to do anything. You just live your life, and you know, you're making money. So that was the first plan. I'm not the best at this stuff, but I think these videos are helpful, and I'm sure I'll get better at them. If you also want to have me look at your situation and you found this useful, the link will be in the description where you can send me. It's a really easy questionnaire. Just send me the details and I can take a look and see if there's any tweaks to make. And other than that, if there's any questions, I'll answer them. And I will do more videos in terms of how you build your credit if your credit's bad. I've been through that before. Yeah, hopefully I get some more submissions so I can show different scenarios. I mean, another really good scenario would be if you're just starting out and you're single, like this was a couple. What if you're just, starting your life and you got a good job. So let's say you're working on a rigs or something and you're making 6 figures, but you don't know what to do with your money. That's another problem to have too. So hopefully that's helpful. Talk to you later.